skill gaps and areas for improvement. Really, at the end of the day, it's trying to find out what areas we need to kind of maybe plug the hole in gaps are. Do you have any ideas around thoughts around that?
Yeah, what I would say is it's really important to take an assessment. And obviously, those of you who are working in the BlueSteps process side, you have a lot of opportunities for this, whether you're working with an individual coach or you periodically are taking assessments. That is really the best way to identify skill gaps and areas to focus on for growth. And I would also be wise about, you can almost get to become a kid in the candy store today because there is so much available. If you're a curious person, which is also highly tied to correlated with a good lifelong learner, sometimes you can go down rabbit holes of learning new stuff just to learn it. But think again about those gaps that you need, whether you're trying to improve in your current career path to become more senior in the position you're currently holding, or if you're actually thinking about pivoting to a new area completely. Work with a professional, have conversations. I would also say mobilize your network and try to get feedback from friends who can give you honest feedback about where it's best to focus. I assume it's a pretty diverse group in the audience, and some companies are doing an outstanding job in terms of helping people identify where their skill gaps are. But remember, that's always in the framework of what your company is looking for you. And I think that's super important. But then think about your next step beyond your own company. Maybe you're going to be a lifelong person with that company, but most of us these days are not. So if you're doing everything you need to do for your current employer, what's the next step for you? Are you going to start something on your own? Or are you going to join another company? What are the skills that you need to do that? So keep that in mind as well.
Mike, did you want to mention something about Emeritus's courses and typically the kind of training offerings that you have to offer?
Sure. We're very deliberate. So we, as I mentioned, we work with 75 universities and we offer, I lose track because we're adding new courses every month. But for this group, there's probably about 200 courses that will be highly relevant for professionals who have they're into their career. They're not just starting the career, because we range from everything from college degrees to professional education. We're primarily focused on professional education, and that's the origins of Emeritus. When I started working with them in 2012 at Columbia Business School, it was all about non-degree professional education. So let me read you a few examples of what we offer and the different formats, because we're very cognizant that sometimes you need a quick update, other times you need to really focus and build something over the course of a year. So a few titles. With MIT, a digital supply chain, reinventing supply chains for the future. So if that is your area of expertise, you can take that course in 6 weeks and skill in that. Or Berkeley Haas, business analytics for leaders, from data to decisions. That's a fairly generic soft skill with that not soft skill, but combined soft skills and analytics, and could be applicable for so many people. I catalog a chief product officer for those of you who are in that line of business. We have so many. Rotman, University of Toronto, Rotman Business School, business design thinking from insights to innovation. Get more rigorous. That program is only 6 weeks, but it's a very rigorous approach to how to think about getting into new product development, whether it's a service or a product. Let me mention one other, Cambridge, as in the UK university, Cambridge Digital Disruption, Digital Transformation Strategies, a 2-month program. So basically, Simeon, we range from courses that are 6 weeks in length, which is about the shortest, to 12 months. Most of our C-suite programs was chief financial officer from Columbia or chief technology officer from Wharton. Those are 10 to 12 months. They include electives. Some of them often lead towards alumni benefits to those great schools. And then others are just quick hits to get deeper knowledge. But this is not YouTube learning. This is something I'll call deeper learning. We really are trying to give people the skills they need to apply them in their jobs. It's not about certain.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you mentioned examples of things that are outside of pure technology as well, right? So it just goes to show the breadth of skills that are out there for, executives to learn and to acquire and to apply and to strengthen their own careers. And I really appreciate that. I'd love to hear below, again, in the Q&A from the audience around what kind of courses have you taken, right? And I think more specifically also is what kind of training is missing that you've seen that you wish that were there. That might be some ideas for Mike as well. So things that you have always wanted to learn about, but you can't quite find that linkage there. Maybe just even like a creative name of the course would be very interesting if you wanted to drop down in the Q&A there. Okay, great. So Mike, why don't we move on to developing a personal learning plan? So that this is, I'm sure you get this question a lot, right? So where do I start? Where do I know that I'm, enough is enough kind of a thing, and how it aligns with my career goals?
Yeah. And Simeon, just before answering that, I also want to say that one thing important about the way we design programs with these great business schools and universities is a format that fits within a heavy, working schedule and balances with work-life balance, because typically they're 4 to 5, maybe 6 hours a week. So you can find times that work in the flow of your own daily life, your work life, your family life, to carve out an extra hour here or there to study over the course of the week. And you're doing it in a class. It's not MOOCs or massive open online programs where you're sort of individually working. These are programs that you're working oftentimes in teams. And I want to emphasize, I think the social aspect of learning is really critical. So that's critical for motivation and for benchmarking, as well as learning from your peers. Oftentimes you learn just as much from the executives in the program as you do from the outstanding faculty. But to answer your question about, a plan, a lifelong learning plan, I think going back to coaches, going back to assessments, and then what we offer at Emeritus is we have academic advisors. So you can go to our website, emeritus.org, search our huge catalog of offerings, and you can click through by school if you happen to have a favorite school, or you can go by category, which most people do, and then you'll see the different offerings in each category. And when something strikes your fancy, you can either start in a chat, you can pick up a phone, but talk to an academic advisor who might help you in deciding which of the programs that you're interested in is the best fit for you at this time in your career. I also think the other thing about lifelong learners is that they don't outsource all of their planning to, coaches or to their company. They take ownership. And that's critical, as I said, because you're the pilot of your future life. You're the pilot of your future professional development, and you should take as much advantage as possible from your current employer. But always remember that there are people outside your current employer. So your assets and resources at BlueSteps, academic advisors at Emeritus, and again, families and friends are great on that too.
Right. Yeah. So I guess a bit of a plug outside of Emeritus, right? That it doesn't need to be the formal kind of approach. I have a question about sort of asynchronous versus synchronous training and education. The reason why I ask that is because that's a question that I get quite a lot as well. Often these courses are quite expensive, right? So is it worthwhile, do you think, doing asynchronous versus meaning that it's not in real time, right? That you kind of do your own thing or is it mainly kind of synchronous, which is in real time in a live audience, online? What are your thoughts about that?
Um, I think it's a great question, and there's a minority of people, and it's about 1 in 10 who are just so they manage their time well. They're very self-motivated, and they can do a purely asynchronous course, complete the whole course, and do it well.
Mhm.
But any of us in the education space remember the data from the massive open online courses that started in 2012 that basically 95% of the people who started those courses did not complete those
Right.
courses. It was only
Sure.
5 people who had that discipline.
Mhm.
Again, I'm speaking more subjectively for myself. I find that learning in groups is much better than learning alone. It's a
Right.
motivator. So the way we design courses at Emeritus are you go week by week with your colleagues and your classmates, but most of the content is asynchronous. So if it worked for me to do it at 6 a.m. and Simeon, it works for you to do your course at 6 p.m.,
Right.
we can be, consuming the content at different times, but then through chats, through group meetups, we'll be discussing that content, once a week at the end of the week. And we'll have some time that is synchronous time with the professor or with a learning facilitator to help that. So we try to blend things. And I think that's another great question for lifelong learners. If you happen to be one of the lucky people who can just do it on your own, more power to you. You probably don't have to pay the premium to join a group like this. You can do it all by MOOCs. But 9 out of 10 people, we need a little extra help. We need that extra motivation of being with a team of people and learning synchronously. And the one thing I will say for the people who do it on their own, you do lose some of the insights you gain from your fellow learners when you're doing
Right.
it purely asynchronously. Whereas when we're getting together, discussing cases or just are working on projects together, we learn so much from each other.
Right. Sure. Um, okay, let's move on to the next section. So let's say you go through a good plan, you've got, you've upscaled yourself to have new skills, etc. So how do you leverage your newly acquired skills and knowledge in your, career goals and kind of career management?
Yeah, this is important because again, I don't know the mix in the audience, but if you're charting your own path to go independent, become a consultant, build your own business, build your own team and move that direction, it's different than somebody who's going to be moving from one company to the next as an
Right.
employee. But I would say that it's really important to emphasize to your whoever you happen to be working with right now, if you're not an independent operator, the amount of time you're investing in yourself. Because more and more CLOs, CHROs are emphasizing they want self-motivated people. This is another way to demonstrate that you're doing more than just the basics to get your job done. You're going above and beyond. I would encourage people, Simeon, I know you have a TED Talk. Any opportunity you have to volunteer to do anything like a TED Talk, start posting on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
start a blog, any opportunity within your industry to go to conferences, be a panelist, talk on a breakout session, be active,
Mhm.
that is critical. So it's learning and then teaching or sharing that knowledge is critical. I'd like to say, don't be a selfish learner. A lifelong learner who is selfish, who tries to keep the knowledge inside. One, you're not demonstrating your value,
Right.
and two, you're not sort of building your network. So be a generous learner, share
Mhm.
your experience, share your enthusiasm, and it makes you a deeper learner, because we all know that if you have to share what you've just learned, you really have to articulate it in ways that are probably much more complex than you would if you're just taking notes to yourself, and it will stay with you longer. So
Right.
that would be my advice about leveraging lifelong learning.
Right. And in general, theory by itself doesn't really move mountains, right? As it does if it's applied, right? So you can learn all the skills that you want, but unless you've got a forum to be able to express that or to share that or to exercise those new skills, it's just really head knowledge more than anything. One thing that I always emphasize with my clients is on LinkedIn especially is, people are shy to kind of share their points of view, right? They might say, well, if I point, one or two paragraphs, I might get, judged by my peers about how I think. But if you flip it around and say, well, you know what, you kind of, the world has to hear from you, right? You've got a lot of points of view that you've developed from continuous learning throughout your life where they haven't. And so giving back out as far as your thoughts and ideas go is so critical. And that kind of aligns with what you're saying, is finding an outlet to be able to share and talk about, and kind of re-explain a concept or skill to other people. And you don't have to be a subject matter expert, right, Mike? I mean, have you, how many times have you kind of shared your knowledge with people, but, hey, I'm no expert at that, right? But it's still very valuable.